Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Counselor, how are you? Good morning. Congratulations.
Thank you so
Do,
much.
do you think the Constitution should be used to create new rights?
Senator, I think the Constitution is an enduring document and that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's been around a long time. It's enduring. And I'm fond of it. You love it. I'm fond of it too. But do you think it ought to be used to create new rights?
Senator, I think it is constantly being interpreted, and the Supreme Court has, through the 230 years of jurisprudence, has found rights in it.
Yeah.
And if I am confirmed as an appellate judge, I would faithfully apply Supreme Court precedent.
Yeah. But are you going to use it to try to create new rights?
Senator, appellate court judges don't create new rights. They take the
Sure they
record below
do.
them.
Sure they do, Counselor. We've both been at this a long time. They do it all the time. And then it goes up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says yay or nay, or sometimes they don't say anything. Let me ask you this. What barometer should we use to decide whether a federal judge ought to create a new right or the people's elected representatives through a Congress or a legislature? What's the standard you use there?
Senator, we have co-equal branches of government. The legislature does the policy making, the judiciary.
Yeah, but what's the standard? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we had this problem in the last administration, and we have it in this administration. If you could just answer my question, because 5 minutes just goes like that. What standard do you use personally to decide whether a new right ought to be created by a federal judge or by the United States Congress if it's a federal right?
Senator, I would be applying precedent, and precedent
I
has standards of
stipulate that
review.
you're going to apply precedent. I stipulate that, so let's take that off the table. What standard should be used to determine whether a new right ought to be created by a court, a federal judge, unelected, appointed for life, or a United States Congress?
Senator, appellate courts have standards of review when looking toward lower court decisions, and I would apply
Come on,
that
Counselor, you're not answering my question. It's a real simple question, and you're very smart, and you know what I'm asking. You believe in a living Constitution, okay? I get that. That's a legitimate point of view. You say you don't understand what an originalist is, but I don't think you're being candid there. But this is let me ask my question again. What standard should be used to decide if you're going to create a new right in the Constitution, whether that right ought to be created by a federal judge or the people's elected representative? Very simple.
Senator, the federal courts are of limited jurisdiction. The appellate courts sit in between a Supreme Court.
Okay, you're not going to answer it. I get it. When you were at the Brennan Center, you're still there, right?
I'm on leave, sir.
Okay, well, but when you were there, did you advocate federal courts to create new rights under the Constitution?
No, sir.
You never did?
No, sir.
Okay.
Right to vote is protected in the Constitution, and it's protected.
So you never asked for new rights, you just said they're already there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How do you know a right's already there if it's not explicit?
In the case of voting?
No, just in general. If I read your resume and it's not, something's on there, well, that's a bad example. If you look at the Constitution and it doesn't, let's say reparations, okay?
Tension rises inside the Senate Judiciary Committee as Senator John Kennedy locks horns with a judicial nominee over one of the most critical questions in constitutional law. Should federal judges have the power to create new rights? This exchange isn't just sharp, it exposes deep ideological rifts about how America's Constitution should be interpreted in the 21st century. Stay with us as we break it all down. From the very first question, Senator Kennedy sets the tone. He doesn't waste time with pleasantries. His focus: whether the U.S. Constitution should be used to create new rights. The nominee tries to stay measured, calling the Constitution an enduring document. But Kennedy isn't looking for broad praise, he wants a direct answer. This moment turns into a battle between two constitutional interpretations. On one side, the living Constitution approached the idea that constitutional principles must adapt to contemporary realities. On the other, originalism sticking strictly to the text and original intent of the framers. Kennedy bluntly accuses the nominee of believing in a living constitution, implying that this philosophy opens the door to judicial overreach, judges acting like lawmakers rather than interpreters. Kennedy's key question is simple, but strategic. Who should decide if new rights are created unelected federal judges or Congress, the elected representatives of the people? The nominee leans on precedent, refusing to provide a personal standard. Kennedy sees this as evasion, pressing harder each time. This back and forth reveals the nominee's cautious strategy: avoid making statements that could become controversial sound bites or haunt future rulings. Midway through the exchange, Kennedy stops framing the question and starts making an accusation that the nominee wants to advance a social agenda through the courts essentially rewriting the Constitution.
Reparations, okay? And it doesn't talk about reparations. How do you know whether a right should be granted if it's not there? That's what I understand you to be saying with the living Constitution.
Senator, again, a case would not come before an appellate court unless parties presented an argument.
I get that. I understand how a lawsuit's tried. Let me ask you again. How do you know if a right's not explicit in the U.S. Constitution that it's really there? It's hiding, it's lurking, and we just have never seen it.
Senator, in Marbury versus Madison, the Supreme Court said that the Supreme Court interprets the Constitution.
Right.
I would look to precedent. I would look to see.
What if there's no precedent?
There's always some precedent.
See, here's my problem, Counselor. This is where I think you're headed. I think what you want to do on the federal bench is advance a social agenda and rewrite the Constitution every other Thursday to advance a social agenda that you can't get by the voters through their elected representatives.
Senator.
Now, that's a legitimate thing to be for. This is America. You can believe what you want, but you spent your whole career doing that. And it bothers me that you're not defending that here, that you're dodging my questions.
Senator.
You're not the only nominee who's done that. It happened under the prior administration. It must be something in the water at the White House. But I'd respect you a lot more if you just up front said it.
Senator, I believe in the value of precedent. I think it makes our system.
So do I, but that's got nothing to do with our discussion. We both know that. And I understand that you've been advised to say precedent, precedent, precedent. When in doubt, is it raining outside? Precedent. But it inhibits our ability to have a rational discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That was the point. Kennedy's questions weren't about getting new information. They were about drawing lines, testing philosophies, and making the nominee's views public record. In today's polarized political landscape, every confirmation hearing doubles as both a legal examination and a political battleground. What do you think? Should judges have the authority to interpret new rights, or should that power remain solely with lawmakers? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and hit the subscriber button for more political showdown.